Well, welcome. My name is Terry Drew Karanen. I'm a retired ordained religious science minister and a practitioner of this teaching. Throughout my writings and talks over the years, I've referred extensively to terms like the science of mind, religious science, the New Thought movement, and spiritual mind treatment, along with copious references to Reverend Dr. Ernest Holmes. This month, I'm going to do my best to explain at least some of that to you. The rest of you, those of you who know this as well or better than me, well, this will serve as a reminder to all of us of the simplicity and the availability of our teachings. This talk and the 3 other videos to follow will give you a cursory idea of what some of that means and why it's been one of the 4 foundations of my life and my ministry over the past 30 years. Today's video is called The Thing Itself. It's taken from what is commonly called the textbook in the study of the science of mind, written by Holmes. Before the actual chapters of the book, we have an introduction divided into 4 parts: the thing itself, the way it works, what it does, and how to use it. Today, we'll begin with part 1. It was Ernest Holmes who developed the science of mind philosophy and founded religious science. But who was he? Born Ernest Shurtleff Holmes in 1887, the founder of our movement is best described as inquisitive. Growing up in New England in a large family, he asked questions of everything and everyone. He studied the works of Ralph Waldo Emerson, Judge Thomas Troward, Dr. Phineas P. Quimby, Emma Curtis Hopkins, Mary Baker Eddy in Christian Science, and countless ancient philosophers. His driving conviction that God is all there is and that we are all united in that oneness produced a large following of people from all walks of life who found comfort, hope, and purpose in the lectures he began to give publicly. Lectures during the end of the 19th century and through the first part of the 20th century were a common form of entertainment for small groups and masses alike, and Holmes became widely known throughout the New England states and the U.S. In 1926, he published what he believed to be a philosophy which could be used by anyone regardless of religious beliefs. That philosophy, the science of mind, eventually evolved into the churches of religious science. Holmes passed on in 1960. Within the New Thought movement, often referred to as religious science and science mind, we hear them used simultaneously and as if they're the same thing. They're not, and here's the difference. Religious science is a religious reverence in scientific law and a scientific approach to religion. It is a spiritual philosophy which deals with the unity of all life and which proclaims that God power exists at the center of every person. In the front of my copy of the Science of Mind textbook, I have a poem. Holmes didn't write it. Paul J. Meyer penned it, but it certainly agrees with Holmes' philosophy. This is the way it reads: whatever you vividly imagine, ardently desire, sincerely believe, and enthusiastically act upon must inevitably come to pass. The science of mind, on the other hand, is the philosophy developed by Holmes and taught by the various organizations, spiritual centers, and churches based on religious science. It's also a registered trademark symbol owned by Centers for Spiritual Living. The science of mind is the science of the laws of thought as they pertain to our relationship to the universal creative mind, or God, or force, or higher power, and to health, happiness, and success. Holmes begins his explanation with his vision. He says, "We all look forward to the day when science and religion shall walk hand in hand through the visible to the invisible." He saw the benefit and necessity of both, but also the division between the two. We have a firm belief in a creative intelligence. However, to suppose that the creative intelligence of the universe would create humankind in bondage and leave us bound, as some faiths teach, would be to dishonor the creative power which we call God. Because of this belief, we trust that the basis of the universe is love, and that we have at our disposal all that we need to live happy, productive, and satisfying lives. We are individuals, and the universe allows us to discover our individuality. The universe is abundant, and the divine plan is one of freedom. Freedom is our birthright, and we all feel that instinctively. Humankind must have the freedom to grow, to explore, to figure things out. Some call it intuition. Some call it the inner voice or the still small voice, but it is there within each of us, calling us, beckoning us to be more than we are, or at least more than we believe ourselves to be at any given moment. It is the innermost thoughts that we all have, however buried beneath all the pain, hurt, and guilt from the past. It is what we know to be our calling. Some of us get to make our living doing what we love to do. Most, however, do not. This is because most of us don't believe we can have fun working. Ask any number of your friends about working, and they'll most likely tell you that working is what you have to do to have the money to have fun later, though many are far too tired from work to have the energy to have fun they are working for in the first place. Reverend Dr. Edwin Gaines, one of the foremost ministers in the Unity movement, uses this affirmation: I serve God, money serves me. Another of my favorite quotes is from my friend and practitioner and teacher, the late Reverend Juanita Dunn. About working and money, she firmly said, I do not work for money. I work. Therefore, I have money. The work she's talking about is living the life she knows she was divinely guided to live, living her true bliss. This is Holmes' teaching, love and law. The law is perfect, so therefore the love must also be perfect. He wrote, the study of the science of mind is a study of first cause, spirit, mind, or that invisible essence, the ultimate stuff and intelligence from which everything comes, the power back of all creation, the thing itself. In his book called This Thing Called Life, he teaches life equals God. God is life, not some life, but all life, action, power, presence, pure spirit filling all space. It's not us and it. We are one of it. Is that hard to conceive? It's okay if the concept is foreign. I know that is for most people just learning about this teaching. But if you can't believe it now, I ask that you be open to understanding it. Holmes used the illustration of the ocean and the wave. The wave is not the ocean, far from it. Yet within each wave, within each drop of seawater, are the building blocks of everything which we call the ocean. Science of Mind is also filled with what I call, here's the good news and here's the bad news statements. It's not necessarily good or bad, but it is sometimes sobering. And here's one of those. The universe never plays favorites. For scientific proof of this, let's look at the action of mixing colors. It works the same for everyone. Why? I have no clue. I'm sure an artist or a scientist could explain it to us, but do we refuse to mix colors simply because we don't understand why two or more colors become another? Most children can tell you that blue and yellow make green. It just does. And there is more complicated knowledge about color too. For example, I was told by a painter that if you have a pink that's too hot or too bright, add a little green to it. I laughed, which perhaps you are doing too. It didn't make sense to me, at least until I tried it one day. The addition softened the pink without muting the hue, as it would have happened if I had added tiny amounts of black and white. Now, you may never use that fascinating little piece of information, or it may someday become quite handy. The point I'm making is that there's always something more to learn, a new point to consider, or a viewpoint to see a situation from a different angle or another light. I've given this same series of talks in churches during the month of January over many years, and I've been involved in this teaching, yet I have never presented the material the same way or understood it the way I do today. So in looking at the metaphysical laws, we don't have to understand any more about metaphysics than we do about mixing colors to use those laws. In fact, we will probably never fully understand why the law of metaphysics work the way they do. That's because they are metaphysical, beyond the physical. Beyond physical will utterly, let me try that again. That's why they are metaphysical, beyond the physical. Beyond the physical will utterly understand. That's still not coming out right. Okay, this is a great example of what it would be like to be at one of my talks because I'm just being me and I try, well, anyway, doesn't matter. The point being is that we don't understand a lot of the physical laws. That's what I was trying to say. We don't understand all the physical laws, let alone some of the metaphysical ones. For example, what does oxygen do after we've used it? It becomes carbon dioxide, right? Well, why doesn't the plant give off oxygen as its waste? Why does it breathe in carbon dioxide and give off oxygen? Scientists may know the mechanism, but but why isn't the process reversed? Or why can't we breathe only oxygen? I know the basic principles of radio is another example, but I don't have the foggiest idea how it works. The television and my smartphone phone are way beyond anything that I have time to think about or care to know, but that doesn't stop me from watching TV or using my mobile device. All these examples go to show that in-depth knowledge of any process is not necessarily required to use the process. However, further studies can continue to hone our skills and thereby lead to more fulfilling lives and seeing our treatment work made manifest. Revelation of John, scripture says, and let they that are thirsty come, and whosoever will, let them take the water of life freely. You may know or have had experience yourself of physical healings through prayers. Well, why are some healed and others not? We hear that it was God's will, that God needed another angel in heaven, or some explanation designed to comfort us when the person doing the comforting thinks they need to say something. In my experience, some people would be far better off saying nothing, but I digress. So why don't all prayers get answered? Holmes says that the answer rather is in the prayer itself. It's not that God has responded more to some than others. It is that some have responded to God more than others. Some pray not believing for one instant that their prayer can be answered. Why on earth would we think that if we are not believing what we are saying? The late Reverend Dr. J. Scott Neal, pastor emeritus of the Fremont, California Church of Religious Science, and once vice president of Religious Science International, had a saying that I use over and over again. We often hear that it is said that religious science is not for everyone. That's not true. However, not everyone is for religious science, and that's okay. We don't need to be everyone's answer. That's because our teaching is not some magical answer or a get rich quick. Oh, if nothing else, this teaching is fun. Okay, so what I was trying to say was this teaching is not some magical answer or a quick fix, get rich scheme. You know, when you write things down, sometimes you think they're going to make sense, and sometimes it's really hard to get out of your mouth. Anyway, it's not always easy. This teaching requires dedication, faith, and hard work, but the rewards are beyond anything that you might be able to imagine up until now. Here's some more quotes from Holmes. There's nothing supernatural about the study of life. Relatives or friends may think we're involved with some kind of weird cult, but it's not. Approach the science of mind, the science of spiritual psychology, with awe but not fear. It's humbling, but not in the sense that we feel unworthy. It's not complicated, really, though some certainly try to make it so. We must have childlike innocence. The term that I've come to love in my life is living with childlike wonderment. You may have heard it said that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. I don't believe that. If we are truly spiritual beings, then we are that before, during, and after our human lives. I prefer to say that we are spiritual beings having a spiritual experience on the human plane. That's because we live, move, and have our being in a spiritual universe that God is in, through, around, for, and as us. The next quote from Holmes reads, "There is limitless power at our disposal." The power operates through what Holmes called the subjective mind. We sometimes talk of universal mind, often capitalized, and subjective mind, not capitalized. When I was originally trained in this teaching, whenever we saw any words that were capitalized, like power, life, or essence, it meant God. That guideline, however, has fallen out of fashion over the years, but for the purpose of these videos, I'll continue to use that form and explain why. If we're talking about God mind, capitalized M, and our mind, not capitalized, It sounds like we have two minds, and Holmes just said that we have only one mind. So what's up with that? The mind to which he's referring would be the capitalized one, the one universal force. Universal subjectivity is the law. The power behind the law is what carries out what we desire, as spoken through our words, as seen in our actions, and as believed in our hearts. What we refer to as our subjective mind is the subconscious individual use we make of the universal law. You and I could both treat for the same job, but that doesn't mean that it will be the same job or even in the same field. And that's how conscious choice works on a universal law. It's specific and it's individualized. Religious science does not teach us what to think, for we have no dog or creed. However, it teaches us how to think. To learn to think is to learn to live. This is one of the major differences between religious science and most religions. Traditional religion says if you do this and don't do that, your life will be better, and some far off, inaccessible God may, if he so desires, and not having a bad hair day, reward you with the endless bliss of sitting on a cloud playing a harp. Well, here's what Holmes thought about that. There is one mental law in the universe, and where we use it, it becomes our law because we have individualized it. Finally, here's another good news, bad news quote from Holmes. All thought is creative. Fortunately for us, though, all of our thoughts do not immediately manifest, such as, I wish I was dead. Oops. Believing that all thought is creating, we cannot determine that some thoughts are creative while others are not, at least on some level. But you might respond, oh, I was just joking. Well, newsflash. The universe doesn't judge. It takes us at face value. Science of mind teaches that God, the universal presence, only says yes. In this case, it's just like a computer. Press the delete key, answer yes to delete, and there's no further discussion. Doesn't matter if you do it accidentally or not. The file is gone, kaput, end of discussion. I'm out of here. It's a memory. Okay, so yeah, I know. You can retrieve it from the trash bin or you can find it some other way, but stick with me on this, okay? The good news about this is that it's our conscious or objective mind that can make use of this subjective law. That means we have the power to change our thinking. As Holmes' classic statement says, change your thinking, change your life. That's why religious science does not teach the existence of karma, at least the way you may have been exposed to it in the past. Karmic law is usually understood as fate. What we do in this life, or perhaps countless other past lives, has a direct and unalterable effect on what's going to happen to us. Paul refers to this concept as kismet, or simply fate. And yes, those are both capitalized. But he goes on to say that it only has the power we choose to give it. Change your mind, change your outcome. Karmic law, as seen by the religious scientist, is the law of cause and effect. What we do does have a bearing on our experience. You may hold the belief that actions from past lives will affect your present life, just as our actions yesterday will affect our life today. However, unlike fate, if we don't like what we see, we can change the outcome. We are not doomed or locked into some kind of predetermined time frame for working out our karmic debt, at least according to science of mind, and those are the principles we're discussing. Holmes believed that the road to freedom is not mysterious. Experience has taught us that the subjective tendency of this intelligent law of creative force may consciously be directed and definitely used. This is the greatest discovery of all time. Intelligence is the conscious mind. The power it uses to accomplish whatever it desires is the law, or subconscious mind. We need not try to create new laws or principles. They're already in place, and it's for us to use that which is already there. Holmes said that learning to trust makes us happy. All people seek a relationship to something greater than themselves, even if that relationship is with other human beings. Even the atheist makes science, society, or money their God. But we can't trust the universe if we don't believe it to be a basically unsafe place. We won't trust God if we still picture God as the old man in the sky who punishes or blesses us as if by divine whim. We can't trust others if we can't trust ourselves. That means that we know what is right for us. We may employ advisors. Those are our doctor, our practitioner, or our attorney, for example. But after hearing their counsel and expertise, we are still the ones who make the decisions. In the religion in which I was raised, I didn't have to think. We knew what we were supposed to do. And when I was asked to lead the organization, I even thought of joining a cloistered religious order or the military at one time, because I craved the idea of having someone else give the orders and take all the responsibility. Today, through the principles of religious science, I am a vastly different person. Today, I take charge of my life, act with life instead of reacting to it, and allow others to live their own lives without my interference. Science of mind doesn't give us rules and regulations. It gives us opportunities and freedoms which allow accomplishment and fulfillment beyond the wildest imagination of most people when they have their first encounter with the philosophy. When we have principles to guide us through life, we no longer need the rules, regulations, and dogma from religion. There is a divine essence, a divine nature within each of us. That is the Christ consciousness, though not Christ as in Jesus the Christ. The mind we discover within us is the universal mind that governs everything. This is the thing itself. I hope you'll tune back in next week for the next video, The Way It Works. If you have comments or questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. You'll also find ways to contact me if you desire a more personal explanation or wish to see me professionally. There are countless ways you could have spent the last few minutes of your day. You decided to listen to this video. I'm honored that you chose to spend it with me. Until the next time, all the best to you, always.